In December 2018, Manchester United decided that Jose Mourinho was the problem. The football was negative, the dressing room was divided, expensive players were unhappy, and the club sat 19 points behind Liverpool. Sacking him felt inevitable. Almost 8 years later, however, one uncomfortable question remains. What if Mourinho was not simply creating the crisis? What if he was describing it before everybody else could see it? Since his departure, United have changed managers, spent enormous amounts of money, finished as low as 15th, and repeatedly discovered the same problems Mourinho complained about. He was difficult, confrontational, and often responsible for his own destruction. But was he also right about Manchester United? When Mourinho arrived in 2016, United had already spent 3 years searching for a new identity. Sir Alex Ferguson had left as Premier League champion in 2013, but David Moyes lasted less than 1 season. Louis van Gaal brought possession and an FA Cup, yet his football became painfully slow. United still behaved commercially like the biggest club in England, but on the pitch it no longer knew what kind of club it wanted to be. Mourinho was supposed to restore certainty. He had won everywhere, understood pressure, and possessed the personality to make Old Trafford feel important again. His first transfer window looked like a declaration of intent. United signed Zlatan Ibrahimovic, Henrik Mkhitaryan, Eric Bailly, and Paul Pogba for a then world record fee. The league campaign was inconsistent, but Mourinho delivered trophies. United won the League Cup and defeated Ajax in the Europa League final, securing a return to the Champions League. Mourinho also counted the Community Shield, because Mourinho has never encountered a trophy he was unwilling to count. Whatever the definition, United ended his first year winning again. The second season appeared to show real progress. United collected 81 points, their highest total since Ferguson retired, and finished second in the Premier League. They defeated every other team in the division at least once and reached the FA Cup final. The problem was Manchester City. Pep Guardiola's side earned 100 points and made United's improvement look irrelevant. Mourinho later called finishing second one of the greatest achievements of his career. At the time, the comment sounded ridiculous. This was Manchester United, the richest club in England, celebrating second place. Years later, it began to sound less like an excuse and more like a warning. Mourinho believed the team had reached its limit. To challenge City, he wanted experienced reinforcements, especially in central defence. United instead signed Fred, young fullback Diogo Dalot, and reserve goalkeeper Lee Grant. No senior centre-back arrived. The hierarchy had concerns because Mourinho had already signed Bailly and Victor Lindelof. From their perspective, buying another expensive defender for a manager known for short stays created long-term risk. From Mourinho's perspective, the club had extended his contract and then refused to provide the tools required to compete. This exposed the structural problem. Ed Woodward was an outstanding commercial executive, but United had no elite football operation connecting recruitment, squad planning, and tactics. Managers requested players for different systems, and the next coach was frequently left with a collection built for somebody else. When United disagreed with Mourinho, there was no clear football authority above him whose long-term vision could settle the argument. Mourinho entered the 2018 pre-season already predicting a difficult campaign. His public mood was miserable. He criticized the transfer business, complained about missing players, and appeared to begin the season preparing his defense before a ball had been kicked. This was one of his great weaknesses. Even when he correctly recognized a problem, he often communicated it in a way that made improvement less likely. Instead of protecting the group, he broadcast its limitations. He found, instead of building confidence, he told the world that the squad was not good enough. The most damaging relationship was with Paul Pogba. He was extraordinarily talented and capable of deciding major matches, yet his performances were inconsistent. Mourinho wanted discipline and control. Pogba wanted freedom and public trust. Their disagreements moved from private meetings to interviews, social media controversies, and an uncomfortable training ground confrontation captured by television cameras. Mourinho removed Pogba from the vice-captaincy and sometimes left him out of the starting team. Pogba made comments that appeared to question United's approach. Every poor result became part of a personal war. The manager was supposed to unite the dressing room, and by the end he had clearly failed. players felt criticized rather than protected. Anthony Martial's relationship with Mourinho was also strained, while Luke Shaw had endured public criticism before eventually improving. Mourinho was not an innocent observer recording United's dysfunction. He contributed to it. Then came his infamous speech about football heritage. After United were eliminated from the Champions League by Sevilla at Old Trafford, Mourinho spent more than 12 minutes explaining that the club's recent European record was not impressive. He compared the experience and success of other squads with the players available to him. Supporters heard a Manchester United manager reducing expectations and defending failure. Mourinho believed he was explaining reality. The badge, stadium, and revenue still said Superclub, but the football structure and squad no longer matched the image. By December, the situation was impossible. United had won only 7 of their first 17 league matches. They were 6th, 11 points outside the Champions League places, and had just lost 3-1 to Liverpool. The football looked cautious without being defensively secure. The squad seemed exhausted by the manager, and the manager seemed exhausted by the squad. United dismissed Mourinho on the 18th of December, 2018. It was the correct decision. That does not mean his diagnosis was incorrect. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer immediately transformed the atmosphere. United won matches, players smiled again, and Pogba returned to form. The contrast appeared to prove that Mourinho had been the obstacle. Solskjaer eventually finished 3rd, then 2nd, and reached the Europa League final. But recruitment remained expensive and inconsistent, while short-term opportunities repeatedly overruled long-term planning. By late 2021, Solskjaer was gone too. Ralf Rangnick arrived and said United required open-heart surgery. Erik ten Hag followed, winning the League Cup and FA Cup, but built heavily around players he knew. The squad again developed around one manager's preferences without a stable club identity above him. When results collapsed, United were left with another expensive group designed for a coach they no longer trusted. Ten Hag finished 8th in 2023-24, at that point United's lowest Premier League position, and was dismissed months into the following campaign. Ruben Amorim arrived with a highly specific 3-defender system and openly refused to abandon it. Once again, the club hired a coach with a clear idea without first ensuring the squad suited that idea. United finished the 2024-25 Premier League season in 15th place, losing 18 league matches, their most since the relegation season of 1973-74. They could still have rescued the year through the Europa League, but lost the final 1-0 to Tottenham and missed European qualification entirely. At that point, Mourinho's claim about finishing second looked very different. His 81-point season was no longer an embarrassing attempt to celebrate failure. It remained one of United's strongest league campaigns after Ferguson. He had also delivered the club's most recent European trophy. Mourinho had warned that the squad needed major surgery, that recruitment lacked coordination, and that the club's modern reputation was larger than its football reality. United spent years changing the person in the dugout while repeatedly confirming those complaints. But saying Mourinho was right does not mean United should have kept him. A diagnosis is not a cure. Mourinho correctly identified weak authority, inconsistent standards, and confused recruitment, yet his response often poisoned the environment. He demanded loyalty while publicly distancing himself from defeats. He wanted players to accept criticism, but sometimes appeared unwilling to adapt his own methods. The modern United required patient reconstruction. Mourinho behaved like a manager trying to win immediately because that is what he had always been hired to do. The real mistake was believing that removing Mourinho removed the problems. United changed the mood, but not the structure. Each new manager arrived as a savior, received a mixture of his own targets and commercial opportunities, and was eventually blamed when the collection failed to become a team. The club moved from counter-attacking football to possession, from possession to pressing, and from a back 4 to Amorim's back 3. Every revolution began before the previous squad had been cleared away. United finally showed signs of recovery in 2025-26 after Amorim was dismissed and Michael Carrick took charge. Carrick simplified the football, restored confidence, and guided United to 3rd place and Champions League qualification. His success demonstrated what can happen when a coach works with the squad he possesses, instead of forcing it to represent an idea it was never built to execute. Carrick, interestingly, had also been part of Mourinho's coaching staff. So, was Jose Mourinho right about Manchester United? About everything? No. About the scale of the problem? Almost certainly. He saw that United were attempting to compete with organizations built around football expertise, while operating like a global entertainment company that happened to own a team. He saw talented players without the balance required to challenge City. He saw a recruitment process that could spend enormous money without constructing a coherent squad. And he understood that the history of Manchester United could inspire players, but could no longer win matches for them. Mourinho was sacked because he lost control of the team, and no later disaster can rewrite that fact. But United spent the following years proving that control was never entirely his to lose. The club kept replacing managers because replacing the manager was easier than rebuilding everything around him. Mourinho did not possess the patience or personality to complete that rebuild. He did, however, leave behind a warning. Manchester United thought the warning was an excuse. Years later, after more managers, more money, and a 15th place finish, it looked uncomfortably close to the truth.